Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of Sites of Socio-cultural Exchange Festivals in Northeast India with the in-house team of Athenium, Deep and Nandini. This series has been curated to delve into the complexities of socio-cultural, political, and economic milieu associated with festivals. The premise we argue is that on a global scale, festivals and events with a strong cultural component are substantially increasing in number and also that their socio-cultural impact are largely emerging to the fore. Against this background, in this episode, we will talk about some traditional festivals of Meghalaya. But before we move on to the festivals, let us know about the state and its demography. So, Deep, you can take us through that.
Yes, means if we talk about the state of Meghalaya, Meghalaya is located in the northeastern part of the country and is bound by Assam in the north and northeast, and Bangladesh to the south and southwest. The state capital is the hill town of Shillong. The state received its statehood in the year 1972, and it was formed by carving out two districts of Assam, the United Khasi Hills and Jaintia Hills, and the Garo Hills.
Yes, Deep. And Meghalaya is actually a beautiful assemblage of the words alaya, which is abode, and megha, which means of the clouds. And it occupies a mountainous plateau of great scenic beauty. During the British rule of India, the imperial authorities nicknamed it the Scotland of the East. Also, it is important to mention here that English is the official language of Meghalaya. And unlike many other Indian states, Meghalaya has historically followed a matrilineal system where the lineage and the inheritance are traced through women. Tribal people make up the majority of Meghalaya's population. The Khasis are the largest group, followed by the Garos, then the Jaintias, but it also has a cosmopolitan makeup with other groups like the Bengali, Punjabi, Bihari, Assamese, among others.
Yes, most of the inhabitants of Meghalaya are Tibeto-Burman, the Garos, and Mon Khmer, Khasis in origin, and the language and dialects belong to these groups. The Khasis are the only people in India who speak the Mon Khmer language. Khasi and Garo, along with Jaintia and English, are the state's official language. They also have other official languages spoken in the state, which include the Panar Sintang, then there's Nepali, then Haijong, as well as Plains language of Bengali, Assamese, and Hindi. The Khasi, Jaintia, Bhoi were collectively known as the Haini Twep people predominantly means inhabit the districts of East Meghalaya. They are also known to be one of the earliest ethnic group of settlers in the Indian subcontinent, and they belong to the Proto-Australoid Mon Khmer race.
Rightly said, Deep. And I must also mention here that traditionally the Khasis believe that their religion is God given and is based on the belief of one supreme God, the creator, Ble Nong Thao, and are followers of Niam Khasi. The Jaintias and Khasis have the same religion, although the Jaintias are more influenced by Hinduism. The Garos, on the other hand, they believe in one supreme creator, Rabuga, who is the sustainer and commander of the world. The other spirits are the representatives of the supreme creator. The spirits actually are connected to the Garo's agricultural life and they are appeased by sacrifices, but they are never worshipped. The headman is is a very integral part actually of the village, and he also acts as the religious head. However, many members of the Khasi, Jaintia, and Garo communities have converted to Christianity, and one can see a number of churches as well as temples, mosques, gurudwaras, and monasteries in Meghalaya.
Rightly so, Nandini. And I think with this introduction on Meghalaya and its demography and people, we can move on to our discussion on the festivals from Meghalaya that we have curated. And from an academic vantage point, we argue that festival is an event, a social phenomena encountered in virtually all human cultures.
Yes, Piash, you very rightly said. And festivals have these underpinnings of both social and symbolic, where both the social and symbolic undertones of the festival are pendatically associated to a series of manifested ideals that the community recognizes as vital to its philosophy, its worldview, its social character, and also historical consciousness, and also for its own survival, both in physical level, which is ultimately honored through a festival. So it is through this understanding of festival as manifestation of a particular way of life we carry on with our discussion today.
Absolutely, Deep. And also festivals, they take place at special times, right? And places, and often they serve to intensify the societal values by bringing them into sharper focus during various special events. And this is also an argument which is put forward by Kepler in 2002. Also, it is important to note that festivals, they unveil how people and communities want to exhibit themselves to their own self and also to others. Importantly, performances and illustrations in the festivals also find a space in the mass media, and that aids in the process of building local and regional identities. This implies that cultural festivals have become a showground where local cultural identities are enunciated.
Rightly so. And in this context, therefore, some select festivals that we can talk about from Meghalaya are belonging to parts of Jaintia, Garo, and the Khasi Hills. And the first festival that we talk about is a Jaintia festival called as Bedding Thumb.
Yes, we can talk about Bathing Kham. It is one of the most important festival in the socio-economic life of the Jaintias, and its focus is on praying for the property and good health of the people, and also it invokes the divine blessing for a bountiful harvest. Uh, Bathing Kham is celebrated all over Jaintia district in the rainy season of July and August. But a grand spectacle also takes place at Jawai, which is the district headquarters, which is 64 kilometers from Shillong by road. The festival is also observed by the non-Christian Panars who believe in the traditional faith of Nyam Tre.
Exactly, Deep. And legend also has it that Joai town was once covered by thick forest, right, without any human inhabitation. It was a home of five deities, four huge stones, and a river nymph. The four stones can still be found at the four corners of the Joai town. These deities, they wished that God would create human beings and send them to settle in that particular geographical area. Their wish was granted when a wandering Mongolian tribe arrived in these forests. Now, to express his great joy at the arrival of the humans, Umokhai, the eldest amongst the deities, began a great dance. Now, the thunder of the dancing deity scared the travelers, but when they started to flee, the deity addressed them to say, "Children of God, fear not, you will live happily and prosperously in this land, which shall be yours from tonight." And so they stayed back. Much later, at the time of a great famine, the people of Joai asked Umokhai to help, and he asked them to perform a community festival after the sowing season. And thus, Bathing Clam became the primary festival of the Jayantias, and it still remains as the primary festival till till this very day.
Rightly so. And the festivals, just before a week, the festival begins, a pig is sacrificed to the thunder, that is the Nyapirtha, and the Vasan, who is the priest, rings the chu chu, which is a brass bell, along the main road of the town till the forest begins. And one of the main feature of the festival is the making of the Dane Klum, Simlent, and Knong, which are rounded, polished, tall trunks of trees which are felled in the preserved forest, right? And an important part of the festivity is that the youth of each locality also try out their artistic skills by erecting gaily colored rods, which are usually 30 to 40 feet tall structures built of bamboo, colored paper, and tinsel. And there's a competitiveness also which flares as each group tries to outdo the other in making the tallest and the most artistic rod.
Yes, so one of the things that happens on the fourth day is that the rods are carried in procession towards the Aitnar site. It is followed by the immersion ceremony, which is preceded by the religious rites and sacrifice at a sacred pool in the early hours of morning. So in the afternoon, the Delta Walker is played between two teams from the upper and lower valleys of the Mitundu River. So it is played with an wooden ball, the side of which wins is believed to be blessed with a good harvest. People offer prayers for seeking the blessing of the Almighty for a good harvest here.
Right, Deep. And I think in the fervor of bedding clown, the next festival that we can bring in is the Wangala Dance, which is a festival from the Garo Hills.
Right, Priyashi. And to talk a little bit about the Wangala, traditionally it is the biggest festival of the Garo community. Wangala is actually a post-harvest festival when the Garos give thanks to Missy Saljong, also known as Patigipa Ra Rongipa, the sun god, for blessing the people with a rich harvest. It is celebrated for 2 to 3 days or up to a week by two or let us say three collaborating villages across the season from September to December. And with different villages setting different dates for the occasion. Now, with the advent of Christianity, Wangala is only celebrated as a token attempt to conserve and promote the ancient heritage of the Garo tribe and to exhibit the culture and tradition of the region. And it is actually very, very interesting. And one more point is that, the true traditional styles of celebrating Wangala can still be found in few remote Songsarek villages, which are actually villages which still follow the traditional faith.
Yes, when we talk about the religion of the ancestors of Garo, the religion is known as Songsarik. The traditional Dakbewal, it relates to most prominent cultural activities. So in the year 2000, a group called Rishi Jilma was founded to safeguard the ancient Garo Songsarik religion. So seeing the Songsarik population, which is in decline now, youth from the Dedengiri subdivision of the Garo Hills, they felt that there is a need to preserve the Songsarik culture. So the Rishi Jilma group is active in about 480 villages in and around the Garo Hills. So the 100 drum, if you talk about the 100 drum Wangala festival, which is the modern day variant, it's in convergence, we can say, of multiple festivals on one single stage held on the first week of November. Celebrated for the first time in the year 1976, it also has gained a lot of popularity and it attracts a lot of tourists every year. So the 100 Drums Wangala festival is held for about 3 days at the Asanang in West Garo Hills. In this festival, we see performers, and they may not always be Songsariks. They're invited from all over the Garo Hills and even from far off places such as Karbi Anglong, then Tripura, Nagaland, Bangladesh, which have sizable pockets of the Garo inhabitants.
That's right. And I think Deep and Nandini, you will agree that one of the key takeaways as we discuss this is how festivals have emerged as a space for conservation of culture, heritage, and identity assertion, which then brings us to another important festival of the Khasis, that is the Senkut Snem. Now, Senkut Snem is a calendar event celebrated every year on 23rd of November, and it is organized by members of Senkhasi. Now, this is important to note that has a prodigious significance for the followers of Khasi traditional faith, which is also called Niam Khasi or Niam Trai, because this day commemorates the beginning of the Renaissance and the awakening of the Khasi community through the Senkhasi movement. And some also consider it to be an annual indigenous festival, which is important. And during the colonial rule, when the Khasi community faced continuous battering on its traditional faith, culture, 16 young men united to form an association which was previously called as the Khasi Young Men Association, which came into existence in 1899 on this very day, that is 23rd November, to preserve and defend the indigenous way of life, that is the Niam Khasi and Niam Trai that we mentioned.
Right, Piyashi. And I must also mention here that later in the year 1900, the Khasi Young Men's Association celebrated its first anniversary, naming the celebration as Senkut Snem. Consequently, this occasion is celebrated every year to venerate that movement. It is also pertinent to note that in the northeastern region, the Khasis were among the first tribes to have affianced with the Christian mission. The formation of this association was also an outcome of the process Christian proselytization that was taking place in the state, whereby many adopted Christianity. And it was actually within the larger cultural philosophy that it was felt. The resistance, that was put forward, also aimed at hindering the process where the British and the missionaries could not totally subvert and undermine their cultures, and also to check the subtle idea that Khasi culture was lower and inadequate in comparison to that of the British. Now, this is also another point which is put forward by Simle in an article in 2013.
Yes, in the year 1901, the association was renamed as Sang Khasi, whose aim is to uphold the Khasi religion of Niam Khasi, which is alongside the Sang Khasi has been making a continuous stride for strengthening the traditional administrative system that involved the CMs, then Lingdos, and the Dolois. And they also say are there for safeguarding the Khasi customary usages. Okay, then a central part of the celebration also include facilitating the student achievers at schools and college levels. So they also have an annual souvenir which is released at this function every year, and they also goes for publications which include several books. Yeah.
Right, Deep. And along this line and tone, another festival that I'd like to bring in from of the Khasis is the Pom Lang Festival. And it is also known as the Nongkrem dance and very popularly also called the Virgin dance. It is known to all that tribal life and culture is effervescent, and the tribes of Meghalaya, of course, are no different. And therefore, an important part of the festivities of the Khasi tribe, the Pombang Festival. Now, let me just break the word. Pom means cutting, and Blang means goat. Is held every year in the month of November in Smith, which is the capital of the Kriam Siemship. And again, same here means king, right? And it is a harvest Thanksgiving celebration where the entire community takes part with a lot of zeal and enthusiasm. It is a week long festival during which many rituals are conducted in the Yingsad. Now, Yingsad here refers to the king's house. Note that no one is allowed inside the Yingsad except the members of the royal family, that is the Siems family, and the Bakra. And the prayers are offered in front of the oak pillar, which is called the Rishod Blade. And only certain festivals or part of the rituals are held in the public domain during the festival, which is in the last 2 days.
Right, Piyashi. And as the name of the festival itself suggests, sacrifices are made as offerings to the goddess Kable Sinshar for a good harvest and opulence of the people. Hence, on the second last day, a procession is taken out from the Ingsad, which moves towards a nearby hilltop. A cock and goat are sacrificed along with other associated rituals. On this day, the procession is led by the dhuliyas, the musicians, and male dancers. The whole environment is electrifying with the sound of the traditional drum beats and pipes, which are also known as tangmuri. The last day of the celebration is very popular and draws a large number of visitors, both Indian and foreign, along with official guests. It is also considered a day of celebration wherein the women, along with the men, dance, which is the special highlight of the festival.
Yes, Nandini, we should also mention about the dance, which is a vital element of the fiesta, and it is also popularly known as the Nongkrem dance. So it is the commoners who perform this dance till dusk, and in the interim, the maidens of the king's family joins the dance, shaded by an umbrella. Also, it is of significance that all of the participants in the dance and associated rituals are followers of the Niam Khasi, that is the traditional faith. Christian Khasis, however, do not take part in any of these activities, but they can be part of the audience.
Right. And the festivals are so exciting, and they give us a sense of bonding and community gathering and all of that. But one needs to keep in mind, and again, we borrow an argument from Kepler's article 2002, where he says that festivals take place at special times and places and often serve to intensify societal values by bringing them into sharper focus during these events, right? And I think this is where our argument also comes into play, that it is important, therefore, to note that festivals unveil how people, communities want to exhibit themselves, not only to themselves, but to others. And importantly, therefore, performances and illustrations in the festival find space in the mass media, which is therefore then a process of building local and regional identities, right? and therefore which implies that cultural festivals become a showground, and they have an artistic, cultural, and identity elements associated with it, which is therefore an important unit of analysis. And again, borrowing an argument from Frank Pong's article of 2005, where he says that during festivals, the highest expression of artistic talent is seen to the fullest in the form of art, music, drama, oral communication. And therefore, if we look at different academic arguments, studies have globally shown that there are many instances where festivals have been used or have become a medium for identity regeneration, assertion, and negotiation. And it is in this milieu that festivals in Northeast can also be examined and understood, and not only just romanticizing tribal festivals. Several studies have also gone on to show that the exploration and advocating festival is also about talking about community identity. And it also does not imply that festivals are the only means of identity assertion, but yes, a very important one. And the very quintessence of festivals and the celebratory temperament makes them a community forum for the preservation of cultural traditions by means of presenting live cultural knowledge and education. The performances that takes place in these festivals are significant, and even though their meanings may keep changing, as a locus for ethnic or cultural identity, and therefore the meaning and cultural assessment, even the likelihood of understanding the society or any society by evaluating these festivals can be unearthed from the structure of the occasion that are embedded in these festivals. And it is with this argument that we end today's episode of Sites of Socio-cultural Exchange, Festivals in Northeast India. I thank Deep and Nandini for this deliberation, and stay tuned for the upcoming episodes. Thank you.